Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why some people cheer when a criminal pulls off a big heist or hacks a massive company, even if what they are doing is clearly illegal? Why do we sometimes look at an outlaw and see a hero? Most of us are taught that stealing is wrong and that laws exist to keep society stable. But every so often, a story breaks where an illegal act, like a daring museum robbery or a high-profile hack, captures the public imagination. Suddenly, people on social media are not calling for justice for the victim. They are calling the thief a folk hero. Researchers are finally digging into the psychology of this, and the results are pretty wild. It turns out this is not just random behavior. It is what they call the social banditry framework. It is essentially the psychology of rooting for the underdog, even when that underdog is breaking the law. The big question here is simple but deep. When do we decide that an illegal act is actually a form of justice? The researchers argue that this happens when people feel like the current system is totally broken. They think about the system as an unresponsive, unfair machine that ignores the needs of regular people. When you feel like you have no voice at the ballot box or in court, you might start looking for other ways to get back at the big guys. You are not necessarily a revolutionary, and you are not looking to start a new government. You are just feeling a sense of vicarious dissent. You are letting someone else, who is willing to break the rules, do your fighting for you. To test this, the researchers looked at groups like Anonymous. They found that people who have low political efficacy, which is a fancy way of saying they feel like they have zero power to change things, are the ones who cheer for these hackers. They feel frustrated, they feel angry at the system, and when they see a hacker disrupt a big corporation, that anger gets channeled into support for the illegal act. It is like a pressure valve. If you cannot vent your frustration through normal politics, you find someone else to vent it for you. Now, this gets even more interesting when you bring in a specific emotion called Schadenfreude. Most of us know this as taking pleasure in someone else's misfortune. Usually that sounds like a mean thing to do, right? But the study found that in the context of unfair institutions, Schadenfreude plays a major role. When a powerful, corrupt, or greedy organization gets taken down a peg, it feels like justice is being restored. If you believe the institution deserves that bad luck, you feel that spark of pleasure and suddenly the outlaw looks like the good guy. The researchers did some really cool experiments to prove this. They had people look at scenarios involving corrupt institutions and then saw how they felt about people who hacked those institutions. They found that the hackers were almost always seen as more legitimate when the institution was acting corruptly. And the key was that feeling of satisfaction. The more gratification people felt about the institution getting their comeuppance, the more they supported the illegal hackers. But here is the catch. This only goes so far. The same study found that if the hackers were seen as outsiders or from a group you did not like, the effect faded. It turns out we are very choosy about who gets to be our hero. We want that hero to be someone like us. So, what does this actually mean for us in the real world? It suggests that when people lose faith in the system, they do not just become quiet or go away. They become prone to celebrating rule breakers. This is a huge warning sign for any society. It says that the more institutions are seen as unfair or deaf to the public, the more vulnerable they are to people cheering for their downfall, regardless of the law. Now, keeping it real, this research has some limits. It relies a lot on surveys and hypothetical stories. So we have to be careful about drawing conclusions for every situation. We do not know for sure if the same people who clicked like on a social media post would actually support an outlaw in real life if the consequences were right in front of them. Also, these figures often present themselves with a cool, heroic image, but the reality is that hackers and outlaws can be pretty dangerous and self-serving too. Just because we like their target does not mean the outlaw themselves is a saint. I think this study is a massive wake-up call for our current political climate. It shows that cynicism and a lack of faith in the rules are not just attitudes. They are active forces that change how we judge what is right and wrong. We have to ask ourselves, how do we build institutions that feel fair enough so that we don't feel like we need to cheer for chaos just to get a sense of justice? Future research should definitely look at how these attitudes shift over time during real crises rather than just in a lab. What do you guys think? Does this help explain why certain internet figures or hackers seem to get such a massive pass from the public, even when they do things that are clearly illegal? Drop a comment below and let me know your take. If you enjoyed this dive into the psychology of outlaws, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tick the bell for notifications so you never miss a trip into the Mind Lab. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.